the next candidates for VP Welfare. So please can I invite onto the stage Megan Rea, Daisy Meredith, Sean Dunbevan, and David Bromlow and Richard Craig. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to give you, surprise, surprise, 2 minutes each to introduce yourselves and tell the students why they should vote for you. So David, can I please start with you?
I knew I shouldn't have took this seat. Okay, so my name is David Bromelow, and well, there's a lot of things I want to change over the when I'm elected. There we go. Okay, so the first thing I want to look at is the Mental Health Charter. For those of you who don't know, that's the Mental Health Charter which student minds are have currently, well, they've finished it. It's been approved by the OFS, Office for Students, and I want to make sure that UCLan is an exemplary example of good mental health services. That's around prevention, that's around the level of service when people need them, and it's about trying to include it in education. So there are other things, so just tell me when the time's up. So the next thing is around accessibility. Nikita's mentioned it, so has Sophie, and it's an issue that affects a lot of students here at UCLan, and sometimes the university, they do really well, but there is so many things they could do a lot better to ensure that all students have the same level of education, have the same level of support. And then, well, okay, I'll mention one more thing, which is with regards to, it's slightly controversial, but which is around transport and car parking. I know, I heard a hushed silence then, just anyway, so we all, well, I don't drive, but I know there's plenty of students who struggle to drive. 10 seconds left, so let's make UCLan welfare for all.
Can you introduce yourself and tell the students why they should vote for you?
Okay, so my name's Daisy Meredith. I am currently the third year psychology rep. I've been the rep all the way through, and I'm a 21st century cat lady. I've got 4 main aims. I obviously want to continue as much work as I can that's already been done. All those amazing goals and campaigns, I want to get them done. My own personal things that I want to continue is PM yes, not PMS. So it's not fun for anyone, so let's make it easier for everyone. Continuing the really amazing period provision work in the toilets. I would like to see that rolled out across the entire campus. My second one is, but do you know though? So student rights, UCLan has a really big problem with how they communicate with students. Students don't know where to go for the help on certain issues, and I would love to see something that makes that a lot more easier and accessible for all students. Yeah, it's a little bit of a silly one, but I would love to share a picture of my cats with you each week. And it seems silly, but it genuinely has a message behind it of taking a moment and looking after your mental health and just finding those positive times in each day to go, right, okay, no, I can do this, it's cute, I've got it, I'm getting a degree, and I want everyone to have that experience.
Thank you so much, Daisy. Sean, would you like to go next?
Yeah, could you repeat the question?
Yeah. Please, can you introduce yourself and tell the students why they should vote for you?
Hi, I'm Sean Dunbavin. I study philosophy and I'm the current Environment and Ethics representative. I think you should vote for me because I think student representation is so vitally important. Obviously, that's why we're all here. My priorities, if elected as VP of Welfare, would be on issues such as sexual harassment and surrounding consent, and about what consent actually is and educating students on such things. I would also like to talk about sexual health as well as like a key issue with the university. A lot of students are coming from past education systems like secondary schools where currently it's not in place educating them on particularly LGBTQ plus sexual health relationships. So I think it would be vitally important to make sure that student sexual health is protected while at uni. My key thing is mental health. I think that the university, it does already have amazing facilities regarding mental health, but it does need to go so much further, especially with regards to things like counselling. The waiting list is absolutely ridiculous, and I think it's unfair on students, especially those at risk. And my final thing that I would like to look at is the BAME attainment gap. This is something I really would like to push because there's absolutely no valid reason for having the gap still now. So I would absolutely like to push to make sure that we can close that as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name's Richard. I'm a business marketing student and I've been a university student and union volunteer, if you will, since 2015. So I've been here for a while. I've almost blended in with the furniture. So two of the main things I'm standing upon is discussing accessibility and sustainability. The reason for that is over the past couple of years, one of my colleagues is actually in the audience. We set up a campaign for disabled students many moons ago, which beat every other disabled students campaign in the country, and we won the National Union Students Award, so humble brag. You know, that beat every other campaign across the entire country. You know, that's quite good for UCLan SU, I think. Yeah? And the things that have been mentioned about accessibility by so many people is very key to me is that I'm a student who's autistic, on the autistic spectrum, and a lot of the adjustments that need to be made by UCLan or employers, whoever, they don't cost a lot of money, they don't take a lot of time. You know, recording lectures, click a button, 2 minutes later, done. Not a big incentive or cost measure for the university. All it requires is the message to get out there. You know, we're all students, we're all invested, both financially and within our time on university. So I think it's about time that we said, okay, let's sit down, let's discuss things, and let's sort this out, because we should get what we pay for.
Going to be starting with Sean first. And the first question is, what, in your opinion, is the biggest issue affecting students' well-being at UCLan, and what would you do to tackle it if you were elected?
I think the biggest thing currently tackling students at UCLan is mental health. Not just mental health awareness, but the actual services that the university provides for student mental health. At the end of the day, anyone can suffer with mental health problems. It covers every single group, and I think it can very easily be dismissed as just something that we can all say, oh yeah, mental health, incredible, let's build this awareness. But at the end of the day, it is a hidden or invisible disability that needs to be respected by a lot more people. So like I said, I would love to push for the university to reduce its waiting times for counselling services. I would also like for the staff at the university to be educated on recognising students who are struggling with mental health problems through either their academic performance or how they are in class, if they're turning up. Because a lot of the time, if students aren't turning up to class, it can be due to mental health problems, and the university normally tackles this, approaches this in a very negative way. And I think it is something that the university should actually be concerned about more so than attacking the students and blaming them for not attending. So yes, thank you.
Daisy, can you go second, please? Of course I will. In your opinion, what is the biggest issue affecting students' well-being at UCLan, and what would you do to tackle it if you were elected?
So, as I mentioned in my introduction, I think there's a really big issue of communication, and Sophie mentioned it as well. I think there are lots of things that affect students, lots of issues that students have, but I think a really, really huge thing in that would be the communication from staff and students of what actually is going on, what's actually out there. We can have mental health provision, we can have societies, we can have all sorts, but if students don't know, then how are they supposed to access any of these things that are there for them? And I think the most important thing is getting that across and engaging with students so they know and fully understand everything that is on offer to them, how to access it, and just being able to access it, I think is the biggest barrier that students face. And I would absolutely love to work with the university and work with you and all the students to tackle that and to figure out what it is that students need so that they're getting that message.
David, would you like to go next, please? Of course I will. Just need to find a question again. What, in your opinion, is the biggest issue affecting students' well-being at UCLan, and what would you do to tackle it if you were elected?
Okay, so mental health is one of the biggest issues that are facing students right now. From a recent SU survey, over 60% of those who responded suggested that stress and anxiety is one of their biggest concerns when attending university. After that, we have money worries and whether they're able to make ends meet. Now, if we just go back to the mental health one, what would I do? Well, it's about, so like I say about the mental health charter, it's about how can we help people before they get to crisis, and then how can we lobby the university into investing more money into adequate counselling. There we are. Adequate counselling, and how can we ensure that students know where those services are? It's all about communication as well.
Richard, shall I repeat the question?
Go for it.
Okay. So, in your opinion, what is the biggest issue affecting students' well-being at UCLan, and what would you do to tackle it if you were elected?
So it's been said a lot, and I'm going to also mention mental health because I've suffered from mental health issues personally, and it's very important that, one, we get the message out there as to what the university offers. Communication, as has been mentioned, is very important, but also the provision and the support. I mean, I know it's not part of a university infrastructure personally, but if I mention UCLan Medical Centre, I can see it in a few people's faces already. So it's about working with other parties, be it NHS locally within Lancashire and wider field, whether it's the Office of National Office of Students and so on. I also think there's a lot of info that can be given on financial education. I'm a business student, and you know, I'm just going to put it out there. The student loan system is very confusing, and I don't like to use the word, but maybe misleading. So I think there could be a lot more done by both the university and the union to help educate students a bit more as to how the system works, because they don't make it easy, because if they did make it easy, everyone would kind of stop and go, ooh, that's interesting. So just to summarise, I think mental health is important, financial education is important, but I also think that, you know, being able to come to the table, as I say, be it with other agencies, the university or the union, to sit down and say, right, how are we going to fix this particular issue? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to be starting with... Sorry about that. So I'm going to ask another question from the audience. How would you represent students that you don't identify with? For example, BAME students, LGBT+, or disabled students?
Okay, so I think it's really important to recognise who you are, your own experiences, potentially how your privilege has influenced those experiences, and then how you kind of are aware of the space that you take within the university. And I think it's really, really important to have conversations with people from all groups to make sure that you stay grounded and to make sure that you are coming at it from the most informed position you can be. Like I say, having those conversations with absolutely everybody, making sure that everybody's voice is heard, everybody is represented, and recognizing sometimes when you aren't the person to have that conversation, if it's a specific issue that you can't identify with, you've never been through, making sure that that student is empowered to get to the solution that they need to feel better and enjoy their university experience a bit more.
David, would you like to go next, please?
Yeah, go on then. What was the question again?
Question is from the audience: how would you represent students you don't identify with? For example, BAME, LGBT+, or disabled students.
I stand here as a somebody who can't speak clearly. As a disabled student, however, I have ideas and opinions on what, I have other people's opinions on what needs to change within other groups. However, I want to work closely with the trans rep, with the women's rep, with the BAME rep, to ensure that everybody's voices are listened to. Now, there have been some fantastic campaigns this year, including the Empower Her campaign, which is currently going on. And I want to ensure that that carries on, regardless of who is the women's rep. But, you know, yeah, we just need to carry these things on.
Sean, can you go next, please?
Yeah, can I ask for the question?
Of course I will, yeah. How would you represent students you don't identify with? For example, BAME, LGBT+, or disabled students.
Okay, so there are obviously still like international students and postgraduate students who I think can have a more difficult time when coming to university, especially at the beginning during freshers and things like that. Feeling more distanced either with postgraduate students, with them being like much older, and they feel like they can't relate or get involved with going out and the social activities, for instance. And also international students being put in their like new environments and things like that. It's very difficult to just be thrown into a completely new environment. So I guess with those in particular, I would push and campaign during freshers to make sure that new students are aware of like the existence of societies and things like that, other ways of making friends and other ways of socializing with people that they can like identify with. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So the question I had to find again. How would you represent students you don't identify with? For example, BAME, LGBT+, or disabled students?
So my take on this answer is that having, you know, worked within the union and the university for the past 5 years, is that it's all about just sitting down, listening, and having a good constructive conversation. So I mentioned before, I'm on autism spectrum, so I'm in disability tick box, if you will, but I want to know more. I want to understand the situations that go on with people who maybe necessarily I may not identify with, but it's all about that listening and that conversation, because without it, how do we progress? How do we understand what's going on if you're an international student, a mature student, whether you're part of the LGBT community, you know, whether you're, you know, whatever the situation may be. And that's something I really want to do. I want to be able to sit down, meet students and say, okay, let's see what the situation in question is, and let's see where we can come to a solution. And I think that's ultimately where all good and great campaigns stem from. It's that initial reception to the idea and then building upon that idea by other people. And that's where all great things stem from. And ultimately, I just want to say that, you know, regardless of which community you come from, you know, I'll be there to listen, I'll be there to help. Thank you.
Sean? Oh, no, you've done it, haven't you? So has everyone answered that question? Yes, just double checking. Well, you can breathe now because that's it. Can we have a massive round of applause for our VP welfare candidates? Yep. So we're going to have a 5-minute break before we get started with VP education and then president candidates.